I brought my wife lunch at work. Her coworker answered her office door half naked. Before we dive into this absolutely devastating story that will make you question whether you really know what your spouse does during their lunch breaks at work, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up right now. This is the kind of story that every married person needs to hear because it shows how something as innocent as bringing your spouse lunch can reveal workplace affairs that have been going on right under your nose. Trust me, what I discovered when I knocked on my wife's office door with her favorite sandwich was so shocking and humiliating that it didn't just end my marriage. It made me realize that workplace relationships can cross lines in ways that destroy families. They say that small gestures of love matter most in marriage. Bringing coffee, sending sweet texts, or surprising your spouse at work with their favorite meal. These moments of thoughtfulness are supposed to strengthen your relationship and remind your partner how much you care about them. But what happens when your loving gesture exposes a workplace affair that's been happening during business hours? What happens when trying to brighten your spouse's day instead reveals that they've been using their office for activities that have nothing to do with work? My name is Michael, and until 8 weeks ago, I thought my wife Amanda had a professional, respectful relationship with her coworkers at the marketing firm where she worked. I thought her close friendship with her colleague Steve was just normal workplace camaraderie between people who collaborated on projects together. I had no idea that when I decided to surprise Amanda with lunch at her office, I would knock on her door and have it answered by Steve wearing nothing but his underwear, revealing an affair that had been going on for months. I'm 38 years old, software engineer from Seattle, Washington, and I've been married to Amanda for 7 years. We don't have children yet, but we've been trying to start a family, and we're excited about building our future together. Amanda works as a marketing manager at a mid-sized advertising agency downtown, and she's always been passionate about her creative work and professional relationships. Amanda had often talked about her coworker Steve Martinez, describing him as a talented creative director who she collaborated with on major client campaigns. According to Amanda, Steve was funny, innovative, and someone she enjoyed working with on challenging projects. Steve has such great ideas for the Johnson account, Amanda would tell me over dinner. He really understands how to create campaigns that connect with younger demographics. I appreciated that Amanda had good working relationships with her colleagues, and Steve seemed like a dedicated professional who shared Amanda's commitment to producing excellent work for their clients. Amanda would often mention Steve in her stories about work, successful presentations they'd given together, creative brainstorming sessions they'd had, and office social events where Steve had been particularly entertaining. Steve had everyone laughing at the holiday party, Amanda might say, or Steve and I stayed late, finished the Morrison proposal, and I think it's some of our best work. I was glad that Amanda enjoyed her work environment and had developed strong professional relationships with people like Steve who made her job more fulfilling. Over the past 6 months, Amanda had started working longer hours and seemed more invested in her job than ever before. She would often stay late at the office for what she described as important client meetings, creative sessions, and project deadlines. Steve and I need to work through lunch today to finalize the Peterson campaign, Amanda would tell me when she called to say she wouldn't be coming home for lunch. The whole creative team is staying late tonight to brainstorm ideas for the new retail client. She might explain when she wouldn't be home for dinner. Amanda's dedication to her work seemed admirable, and I supported her career ambitions even when it meant spending less time together in the evenings and on weekends. The first thing that made me slightly suspicious was when Amanda started mentioning that she and Steve were working on projects outside of normal business hours, often meeting for breakfast or coffee before work to discuss campaigns and strategies. Steve suggested we grab coffee at 7 a.m. tomorrow to review the presentation before our client meeting. Amanda would tell me the night before these early meetings. Steve and I are going to work through the weekend on the Rodriguez account, she might say on Friday afternoons. Amanda's increased collaboration with Steve seemed reasonable given their professional responsibilities, but I was surprised by how often their work required them to meet outside of normal office hours. The second red flag came when I noticed that Amanda had become more secretive about her phone and more protective of her work communications. Amanda would receive text messages and emails she would read quickly and then put her phone face down, claiming they were work-related but sensitive client information. Steve is updating me on the Morrison meeting, she might say when her phone buzzed during dinner, but she would read the message privately rather than sharing what Steve had said. When I casually asked to see funny work emails or interesting project updates that Amanda mentioned, she would claim that everything was confidential due to client privacy requirements. "I can't show you the details," she would say. "But trust me, you'd find Steve's creative ideas really impressive." Amanda's increased secrecy about work communications seemed unusual, especially since she had previously been open about sharing interesting aspects of her job with me. The third red flag came when Amanda started paying more attention to her appearance on workdays, dressing more fashionably, and wearing makeup and perfume even when she had no client meetings scheduled. "You look really nice today," I would comment when Amanda was getting ready for work. "I have an important presentation," she might reply, even on days when she had previously told me her schedule was light. Amanda also started buying new clothes and professional accessories that seemed more expensive and fashionable than her usual work attire. When I asked about her increased spending on work clothes, Amanda explained that she wanted to make a good impression as she took on more high-profile projects and client responsibilities. "Image matters in marketing," she said. "I need to look professional and polished when I'm representing major accounts." Amanda's explanation seemed reasonable. Her sudden interest in upgrading her work wardrobe seemed excessive for someone whose job responsibilities hadn't officially changed. The fourth and most concerning change was in Amanda's attitude toward our relationship and our time together. Amanda became less interested in spending romantic time together and seemed distracted even when we were having dinner or watching movies at home. "Sorry, I'm just thinking about work stuff," she would say when I noticed that she seemed preoccupied during our conversations. Amanda also started making comments about how much she enjoyed the creative energy at her office and how stimulating it was to work with innovative people like Steve. "Steve really pushes me to think outside the box," she would say. "Working with him makes me realize how much I love the creative side of marketing." Amanda's enthusiasm for her work seemed healthy, but her comments suggested that she was finding more intellectual and emotional satisfaction at work than she was finding in our marriage. The situation came to a head 6 weeks ago when I decided to surprise Amanda at her office with lunch on what I knew was a particularly stressful day for her. Amanda had been working on a major campaign proposal that was due that afternoon, and she had mentioned that she probably wouldn't have time to eat lunch because of the deadline pressure. "I'm going to be swamped all day with the final presentation materials," she had told me that morning. "I probably won't even have time to grab a sandwich." I thought it would be thoughtful to bring Amanda her favorite turkey and avocado sandwich from the deli near her office, along with her favorite iced coffee, to help her get through the stressful afternoon. I arrived at Amanda's office building around 12:30 p.m. and took the elevator to the 4th floor where her marketing firm was located. Amanda's office was at the end of a hallway, and she had her own private space with a door that could be closed for confidential client calls and focus work sessions. When I reached Amanda's office, I noticed that her door was closed, which wasn't unusual since she often worked with her door closed when she needed to concentrate, take important phone calls. I knocked on the door and waited for Amanda to answer. After a few moments, the door opened, but instead of seeing Amanda, I was confronted with Steve Martinez standing in the doorway, wearing nothing but his underwear and an undershirt. Steve looked shocked and panicked when he saw me standing there with Amanda's lunch, and he immediately tried to close the door. "Oh shit," Steve said, his face going white with panic. "Michael, I can explain." There was nothing to explain. The situation was immediately clear and undeniable. I pushed past Steve into Amanda's office and found Amanda sitting behind her desk in a state of partial undress, obviously trying to quickly put her clothes back on. "Michael," Amanda said, her voice filled with horror and panic. "What are you doing here?" "I brought you lunch," I said, still holding the sandwich and coffee that I had thought would brighten her stressful day. The irony was devastating. I had come to support my wife during a difficult workday, only to discover that she had been using her office for an affair with her coworker. Amanda's office showed obvious signs that she and Steve had been engaging in sexual activity. Her desk was disheveled. There were articles of clothing on the floor, and both Amanda and Steve were clearly in the process of getting dressed when I knocked on the door. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. Amanda and Steve looked at each other with expressions that made it clear this wasn't a one-time mistake or moment of weakness. "Michael, we need to talk," Amanda said, still trying to compose herself and finish getting dressed. "How long?" I repeated, demanding an answer. "About 4 months," Amanda finally admitted. 4 months. Amanda had been having an affair with Steve for 4 months, using her office during lunch breaks and after-hours meetings to conduct their relationship, while I believed she was working on client campaigns and creative projects. I left Amanda's office without saying another word, leaving the lunch I had brought her on her desk as a reminder of how my attempt to show love and support had instead exposed her betrayal. The drive home was surreal. I kept replaying the image of Steve answering Amanda's office door in his underwear and Amanda's panicked face when she realized her affair had been discovered. That evening, Amanda came home and and try to explain what had happened and minimize the significance of her relationship with Steve. "Michael, I'm so sorry you had to find out this way," she said. "What happened between Steve and me wasn't planned. It doesn't mean I don't love you. But Amanda's affair with Steve wasn't an accident or a moment of poor judgment. It had been going on for 4 months and involved using her workplace for sexual activities during business hours. You've been lying to me for months," I said. "Every time you talked about working late with Steve, every time you mentioned collaborative projects, you were actually having an affair." Amanda tried to claim that her relationship with Steve had developed gradually from professional collaboration into something more personal, and that she had been trying to end it before I discovered it. "It started as just a work friendship," she said, "but we developed feelings for each other. I was planning to tell you and end things with Steve." But Amanda's explanation didn't account for the calculated nature of their affair or the fact that they had been using her office, professional space, for their personal relationship. If you're feeling as betrayed and humiliated as I was when I discovered Amanda and Steve's office affair, you need to hit that subscribe button right now, because this story gets even more shocking when I found out how many people at Amanda's company knew about their relationship. What I discovered about workplace affairs and how they affect professional environments will make you realize that some people have no boundaries when it comes to mixing personal relationships with their careers. Ring that notification bell, because you won't believe how this situation affected both our marriage and Amanda's job. Over the next several days, Amanda provided more details about her affair with Steve that made the situation even more humiliating and painful. Amanda admitted that their affair hadn't been limited to her office. It had also taken place in Steve's office, in conference rooms, and even in the office building's parking garage. "We found times and places where we could be together without anyone seeing us," Amanda confessed. Amanda and Steve had been conducting their affair throughout their workplace, turning what should have been a professional environment into the setting for their secret relationship. Amanda also revealed that their affair had been affecting their work performance and professional judgment in ways that could have had serious consequences for their clients and company. "Sometimes we were so focused on each other that we missed important details in client presentations," Amanda admitted. "Our personal relationship was interfering with our ability to do our jobs effectively." Amanda and Steve had been allowing their affair to compromise their professional responsibilities, potentially putting client accounts and company reputation at risk. The most devastating revelation was that other people at Amanda's company had suspected or known about her affair with Steve, making me feel even more humiliated and naive. "A few people at work figured out that something was going on between us," Amanda said, "but we thought we were being discreet enough that it wouldn't become office gossip." Amanda's affair with Steve had apparently been an open secret among some of their coworkers, meaning that multiple people knew about their relationship while I remained completely unaware. When I contacted Amanda's supervisor to report the inappropriate workplace conduct I had witnessed, I learned that the company had policies against romantic relationships between employees, especially when they involve the use of office facilities for personal activities. "What you've described is a serious violation of our workplace conduct policies," Amanda's supervisor told me. "Employees are not permitted to use company facilities for personal relationships, and romantic relationships between coworkers must be disclosed to human resources." Amanda and Steve had been violating company policy as well as their marriage vows, putting both their jobs and their professional reputations at risk. The investigation that followed my report revealed that Amanda and Steve's affair had been more extensive and public than they had claimed. Security footage from the office building showed them entering and leaving each other's offices during lunch breaks and after hours, confirming that their affair had been going on regularly for months. Other employees came forward with reports that they had suspected Amanda and Steve were having an affair based on their behavior during meetings, their frequent private conversations, and their obvious personal chemistry during work events. Everyone could tell that Amanda and Steve had something going on. One of their coworkers told me they were always finding excuses to work together, and they acted like a couple even during professional meetings. Amanda's affair with Steve had been affecting the entire workplace dynamic and had been obvious to people who worked with them daily. Both Amanda and Steve were ultimately terminated from their positions due to their violation of company policies regarding workplace conduct and the use of company facilities for personal activities. The company cannot tolerate employees using office space for sexual activities, Amanda's former supervisor explained. This behavior creates liability issues and sets a terrible example for other staff members. Amanda and Steve had lost their jobs as well as their professional reputations due to their inability to maintain appropriate boundaries between their personal relationship and their work environment. The termination of Amanda's employment also meant that she lost her health insurance, retirement benefits, and professional references, making it difficult for her to find comparable employment in the marketing industry. No one wants to hire someone who was fired for having sex in their office, Amanda said when she struggled to find new employment. My professional reputation is completely destroyed. Amanda's affair with Steve had not only ended our marriage, but it also severely damaged her career prospects and financial stability. I filed for divorce immediately after discovering Amanda's affair, and the divorce proceedings revealed additional details about how her relationship with Steve had affected her priorities and decision-making. Text messages and emails between Amanda and Steve showed they had been planning ways to spend more time together, including potentially traveling together for fake business trips and finding ways to work on projects that would require them to spend time alone. We should volunteer to handle the Portland client presentation together. Steve had texted Amanda. We could stay an extra night and have some time to ourselves. Amanda and Steve had been actively planning to use company resources and fake business travel to facilitate their affair, showing a level of calculation and deception that went far beyond simple infidelity. The divorce was finalized 4 months after I discovered Amanda's affair, and I was awarded a favorable settlement due to Amanda's adultery and deception. Amanda's relationship with Steve did not survive the consequences of their affair being discovered. The stress of losing their jobs, the public humiliation of being fired for sexual misconduct, and the guilt over the damage they had caused to multiple relationships destroyed whatever attraction they had felt for each other. Steve and I realized that our relationship was based on excitement and secrecy. Amanda told me during our divorce proceedings. Once everything was out in the open and we had to deal with the real consequences, we discovered we didn't actually have much in common. Amanda and Steve's affair had been sustained by the thrill of deception and the excitement of forbidden workplace romance. It couldn't survive the reality of being exposed and held accountable for their actions. 8 months later, I've rebuilt my life without Amanda and learned valuable lessons about trust, workplace relationships, and the importance of maintaining appropriate boundaries between personal and professional activities. I've also learned that workplace affairs are unfortunately common and that many people fail to consider how their personal relationships can affect their professional responsibilities and reputations. Amanda's affair with Steve wasn't just about infidelity. It was about poor judgment, violation of professional ethics, and a willingness to risk multiple important relationships for immediate gratification. The experience taught me that I need to be more aware of changes in my partner's behavior and more willing to ask direct questions when something seems unusual or concerning. Amanda's increased secrecy about work, her changed appearance and schedule, and her decreased interest in our relationship were all warning signs that I should have investigated more thoroughly. I'm now in a relationship with someone who understands the importance of maintaining appropriate boundaries between work and personal life, and who values honesty and transparency in all aspects of her life. Sometimes people ask me if I regret bringing Amanda lunch that day, since it led to the discovery that ended our marriage. The answer is no. Amanda's affair with Steve was already happening and would have continued regardless of whether I discovered it that particular day. It was better for me to learn the truth about Amanda's infidelity and poor judgment than to continue living in a marriage based on lies and deception. Amanda made the choice to have an affair with her coworker and to use her workplace for sexual activities that violated both her marriage vows and her professional responsibilities. The fact that I discovered her affair by trying to do something thoughtful for her only highlighted the contrast between my commitment to our relationship and her willingness to betray that commitment for her own selfish purposes. Bringing Amanda lunch that day was an act of love that revealed the truth about her character and priorities. While it was painful to discover her affair in such a humiliating way, it allowed me to make informed decisions about my future based on reality rather than continuing to live based on lies. The image of Steve answering Amanda's office door in his underwear will always be burned into my memory. It also serves as a reminder of why I deserve better than someone who would use her workplace for an affair and lie to me for months about her activities. Amanda's poor judgment destroyed not only our marriage, but also her career and professional reputation. Her affair with Steve serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of failing to maintain appropriate boundaries between personal desires and professional responsibilities. I'm grateful that I discovered the truth about Amanda's character before we had children or made more significant financial commitments together. Living with someone who is capable of systematic deception and poor judgment would have been much more difficult and damaging in the long term than ending our marriage when I did. The lunch I brought Amanda that day was intended to show love and support, but instead it revealed the truth about who she really was and what she was capable of. That truth, while painful, set me free to build a relationship with someone who shares my values and commitment, honesty, and appropriate boundaries in all aspects of life.